used for short-term borrowing and lending, often with a tenor of overnight to 48 hours. And the implicit interest rate on this agreement is known as the repo rate, a proxy for the overnight risk-free rate. Okay, and the agreements are generally considered safe investment because the security function as collateral. Okay, and usually they use usury U.S. Treasury bonds. Okay, so it is classified as a money market instrument. Repurchase agreement functions as a short-term collateral-backed interest-bearing loan. Okay, and the buyer, okay, acts as a short-term lender. The seller acts as a short-term borrower, and the securities being sold are the collateral, and the securities are the U.S. government treasury bonds. Okay, thus the goals of both parties, secure funding and liquidity, are met. Okay, and it represents important source of funds for banks. Okay, so again, repurchase agreements are issued by banks. And who are the lenders? Okay, mostly they are held by large corporations. Let's see the example. Microsoft has idle funds of $100 million, and it attempts to loan it for 1 week. Microsoft uses the funds to purchase U.S. Treasury bills from the bank, and the bank agrees to repurchase the Treasury bills at a higher price than the one that Microsoft has paid. So the result, Microsoft loans $100 million to the bank and holds Treasury bills that were worth $100 million. The bank repurchased the Treasury bill at a higher price than $100 million by the maturity date. Okay, so that's the example of repurchase agreement. Okay. Questions? Okay, the last one, federal funds. Okay, in the U.S., federal funds are overnight borrowings between banks and other entities to remain their bank reserves at the Federal Reserve. Okay, and the banks keep reserves at Federal Reserve Bank to meet their reserve requirements and to clear financial transactions. And the transactions in the federal funds market enable depository institutions with reserve balances in excess of reserve requirements to lend reserves to institutions with reserve deficiencies. Okay, so it happens in 1 day. That's why sometimes in Taiwan we call that overnight funds. And the interest rate at which these deals are done is called the federal funds rate, and in Taiwan we call that overnight rate. Okay, maybe Patrick knows that because you used to work for the bank.
Yeah.
But the funds are not collateralized. Okay, they are like euro dollars, so they are unsecured interbank loan. Okay, so the issuers of federal funds are banks. Okay, in order to meet the reserve requirement.
Yeah, we used to, the bank that I was working, there was a time we used to have this problem. So we always make interbank lending almost every day.
Almost every day.
Yeah, before the investors step in to pump in more money so that we can now have meet the reserve. Yeah, so but it's like we don't call it federal funds. No, we just say interbank.
Oh, interbank loan.
Yeah, interbank loan.
How?
Like we take it overnight, like we borrow today
Yes.
to meet the central bank reserve requirement, and then by the end of work tomorrow we need to pay, and then borrow from another bank again. So it's like when it is coming in, it is going out. Coming in, it is going out. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like so we have more or less like different deals. Like I said before, we run a money market in the Gambia. We don't run capital market, but we don't have stock and all those things. But the money market and some of the short-term instruments, money instruments, yes, we have them. Yeah.
Why couldn't the bank just use purchase agreement to solve short-term, overnight need of fund?
But as you can see there from the previous slide, yeah, they can do that, but usually, during 1 week. However, in order to meet the reserve requirement, we have to do that by 24 hours. Yeah, so we can do that, but the maturity date takes longer. Yeah,
Because
it
you
takes
need to
longer.
look for the customer to come and buy the repurchase agreement and then deposit the fund. And then you need to transfer the fund to central bank. Because usually it's the reserve, and the reserve is in the central bank. It's not in your bank. You keep some money in the central bank as a reserve. So all other banks already have reserves there. So it is easier for you to call a bank and then say, okay, I need this amount of money, and then they can just move it to your account in the central
Okay,
bank.
so the money movement is within the central bank
Yes,
account.
it's within the central bank account. So because it is 24 hours, so while sometimes even 1 hour, you can have the money and then a customer come and say, I'm going to withdraw my money. You know, so you are preparing to ship the money to central bank. Then a customer come and said, I need my money. So after you transfer the customer's money, you may not meet your reserve. So sometimes within 5 minutes or 20 minutes, it depends, or 1 hour. So the easiest way is for you to just call another bank, another commercial bank, and say, okay, I need this amount of fund. Sometimes even before doing the paperwork, you just call and then they do the transfer. We have a system, you know, and then we call it like a real-time gross settlement. Then you just go there and then click reserve and then they transfer. Then you see your telex. So that's done. So tomorrow you prepare to pay them.
Since we have mentioned that we have just mentioned about the reserve, okay, Federal Reserve, okay, the reserve account. Okay, now let's take a look at the T account of Treasury, the Federal Reserve Bank. Okay, let me turn it off a little bit. The Federal Reserve System, we call that FED. Okay, it is the bank, okay, the central bank of the bank. Okay, and the T account, on the left hand side, assets, on the right hand side, liabilities. Okay, and stockholders' value. Okay. The assets include securities, such as government bonds. Okay, and on the right-hand side, liabilities. Okay, it includes two items. One of them is called reserves. Okay, from the banking system. The other one is currency in circulation. Okay, and we call reserves R, currency C. Okay, and the summation of reserves and currency is called monetary base. Monetary base. Okay, so it has reserves and currency. Okay, and the other one, okay, the other item underneath the assets is called discount loans. Okay, so if the bank, the commercial bank, has a deficiency of liquidity, okay, then the commercial banks can borrow money, okay, from the Fed, which is called discount loans. Okay, and the reserves. Okay, whenever the bank has an inflow of money, such as the checkable deposits, okay, or it has the discount loans from the Fed, okay, or when the Fed conducts an open market purchase, and then the Fed just injected the checks or cash currencies into the bank, okay, and wherever any of this inflow of money should be recorded, okay, in the account of reserves, okay. So that's the Fed's T account, and then to the banking system. Okay, to the banking system, the T account looks like this. Okay, so it has checkable deposits. Okay, and then whenever there is a new funds inflow to the banking system, okay, checkable deposit, then it has to just record it under the reserve account. Okay, so the idea is this. The reserves of the banking system, okay, wherever it changes the reserve of the Fed. Okay. So just like Patrick says, usually the reserves should be down within 24 hours. Okay, and so the fastest way for the bank to do is just call another bank to borrow money from the other bank. Okay, so it takes shorter time. Okay, we can also do that. Okay, to do a repurchase permit agreement. However, it takes longer. Okay, so let's see. There are 6 factors. Okay, that influence the monetary base. 6 factors. Okay, the first one is the Fed's open market operation. Okay, the second one is a household. Okay, we call that non-bank public. Okay, he or she decides to shift his or her deposit from deposit into currency. This will affect the reserves in the banking system, and then in turn will influence the reserves of the Fed. Okay, that's the second factor. Okay, affects the monetary base. The third factor, okay, is the loan, the discount loan, okay, to the commercial banks. Once the Federal Reserve Bank, okay, approves the discount loans to a certain bank, then the bank will have money inflow, okay, which will increase its reserves, okay, and then it will increase reserves of the Fed. The fourth factor, I'm sorry, can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. The fourth factor, okay, we call that treasuries deposit. Okay, the treasury shifts the deposit from a commercial bank to the Fed. Okay, so the treasury can decide whether you make a deposit with a commercial bank or with the Federal Reserve. Okay. However, once he decides to shift the deposit from the commercial bank to the Fed, that will affect the reserves in the banking system and then influences the reserves of the Fed. The fifth factor is called flow. Yeah, the Federal Reserve Bank has to conduct the clearing, check clearing process. Okay, so we will see a temporary increase or decrease in the banking system reserves, and hence that will influence the reserve of the Fed. Okay, that's the fifth factor. The sixth is the foreign exchange